Remember that even the strongest relationship is going to require work. And I think understanding these 6 pitfalls is really important that can help you prepare yourself with the tools you need in working with your partner to be happy, to really develop that relationship in a positive way. And that's what all of us want. Have you ever wondered why some relationships seem destined for success while others fall apart, despite the best intentions? You may be in a relationship just like this. You may have had a relationship just like this. And in the past, you're like, oh, this is a really great relationship. It's going to last forever. And then somehow it falls apart. Things happen. Well, in this video, we're going to dive into the top reasons why relationships fail. Whether you're happily married, just starting out, or somewhere in between, I'm going to provide you with this information and hopefully some revelations that can change how you approach your love life and your love relationships. So here we go. Let's get into it. Number 1 is not going to surprise you, and that's cheating. So let's face it. Infidelity is a massive blow to trust. And when you talk about or you think about the emotional fallout of cheating and why it can be so difficult to recover from it, because what happens is we have this sense of trust in that person and we've made that commitment to be with one another. And when people cheat on us, we feel like that is a break of that trust, that now there has to be an interest in someone else. There has to be a loss in the relationship. There has to be this, that. And that can really impact your self-esteem. And it can really break down not only how you see the relationship, but how you see yourself. And that wearing away, that erosion of the relationship and of self, it is the ultimate betrayal. It is that horrible questioning of self. Now, some people are able to put their relationship back together by going to a mental health provider, by exploring where that rupture happened. There's a lot of different ways to overcome it, but it is the number 1 reason relationships fail, that people have stepped out, people are cheating, and it's that erosion of that relationship. Now, number 2 is money fights, fighting over money. Financial stuff and disagreements is a major source of stress. Of course it is. And it can even be an indicator of deeper problems that's going on because of all of that stress, particularly if it's monetary, financial. So, and you guys are going at it, you feel like you're not on the same plane. Maybe someone overspends, someone else is trying to save. You have to have that financial discussion. And a lot of times when I've worked with couples in the past and they've had financial issues, like, well, I mean, it's not sexy to talk about money. Well, no, it may not be, but it's something you got to kind of talk about. You got to talk about how you're going to deal with it and how you're going to set it up. And if you don't have this conversation, that means that you have sort of implicit expectations of how money's going to be managed. You don't want to do that because the other person may not understand your perspective. You got to have those conversations. That's critical because, again, making those assumptions, particularly where finances are involved, because finances can relate to stability. That stability can add to a sense of safety. When that sense of safety starts to get questioned, do you guys pull apart or do you come together? And a lot of times, if you're working on implicit expectations, a lot of times when there's financial distress, you separate, right? You go into your camp, he or she, they go into their camp, and then you're at each other. And it can really, really erode your relationship more and more and more over time. And it's important that if when you have those financial discussions, that you have a little bit of fluidity, that it's not your way or the highway. You have to find a way to make it work for both of you, a way that you can manage money effectively and avoid those financial pitfalls. To manage money effectively as a couple together so that you can avoid those financial pitfalls. Because if you don't, you're going to hit those pitfalls. But the question is, do you fall alone or do you fall together? I believe that if you're going to have financial stress, you're better off with your partner and you guys being on the same page and dealing with it together, because that will make your relationship stronger. If you feel like you're alone in this, you're the only one trying to manage those finances, boy, can you feel isolated and alone, and it erodes your relationship over time. And that leads us to our next point, which is number 3, drowning your sorrows. And this is where substance abuse comes into play. And substance abuse can absolutely quickly spiral out of control, damage your relationship and everything else in its path. Because what happens is a lot of times when we use substances as a coping mechanism becomes a maladaptive coping mechanism. And you have to think, okay, so when you drink or if you use substances or anything like that, are you using it because the emotions are too much, that it's too painful? Are you running from something? And that, I believe, is a central indicator for substance abuse. Maybe not now, but down the road, even if it's to deal with fatigue, even if it's like to turn your mind off. Oh, my mind is going too fast. Oh, I need a drink to do that, or I need to get high to do that. That's a problem. It's a maladaptive coping strategy. And what happens is that's where dependency lies. When I've worked with folks with dependency concerns, a lot of times what we do is we have to recognize this is a maladaptive coping strategy. You're running from something. You're covering something up. Now, as a couple, you can come together and work together in order to recognize what that person, or if both of you, what you're both running from, and then face it head on together. Even if it's one of you or both of you, facing it on together. Sometimes it's your past. Sometimes it's a traumatic past. Sometimes it's stuff we've already talked about, finances. Sometimes it can be dealing with infidelity, whatever it may be. But hiding in a bottle or underneath a pile of weed or whatever it is, that's not going to solve the problem. Substance abuse and addiction, this isn't going to blow your mind at all, doesn't solve the problem. It amplifies the problem. Even though it feels like it's distant, it's a short-term reward with a really painful long-term consequence. Absolutely. And the dangers of addiction absolutely can ruin your relationships with healthy others. It can really disrupt your employment. It can disrupt a lot of connections and understanding of yourself. And the more distance you have psychologically with yourself, the more intense you're driven to manage it maladaptively with substances. Got to bear that in mind. That takes us to number 4, jealousy. Now, this green-eyed monster, woo, man, it can be a problem. Unhealthy jealousy can be the poison to any bond, any strong bond. Those 3 things we just talked about can absolutely manifest or drive intense jealousy. And the root of jealousy is often insecurity. It can be insecurity about self. Oh, I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't make enough money. I don't do, whatever it is, fill in that blank with whatever it is. But so that jealousy is a sense of discontrol, dysfunction with the self. So you feel like you want to squeeze it. You want to squeeze that person into a box, and you want to trap them there so that now I got you. So now I have nothing to be jealous about. Well, in working with a lot of people along the narcissistic spectrum, borderline spectrum, different personality traits, symptoms, disorders, when it comes to jealousy, that sense of insecurity and that drive for intense control over someone else, I've never found, even when the partner is agreeable, the individual is still jealous, because the jealousy isn't external, it's internal. It's in your brain. It's in what I call family in the head. That family in the head, something everybody has. I talk about it in a lot of my videos. And yeah, and I get it from a wonderful psychologist, Laura Smith Benjamin. She has a bunch of books, amazing person. And this family in the head, it is this chorus in your brain that tells you and amplifies the beliefs and perspectives of your weaknesses, and gets you to believe that everybody else sees it. And in the context of jealousy, what happens is it's telling you, well, he or she, they're just going to step out on you as soon as they can. Are you kidding? You have no money, right? So what's the point of hanging out with you? You're not that smart to begin with. You're not that good at this. You're not that great at that. And that's all family in the head. And it intensifies this jealousy, this need for greater control. But it is a fallacy, because you're never going to fully, absolutely control anybody. You can't. It's impossible. Even if you were to squeeze them in this tiny little box, right? I'm going to put you in this box. You're going to be in that box forever. Come on. I mean, let's just entertain that idea, right? It's outlandish, but let's entertain it, right? You put this person that you're worried that they're going to leave you, that they don't love you, they don't care about you, all that. You're going to put them in a box, right? So you have full control over them. When they eat, when they sleep, right? What they do, all that. You know what? You're still going to have that problem, because even if they're in that box, there's still, what that family in the head's going to tell you is going to say, well, they don't love you because you just put them in a box. So that's the problem with jealousy. It's not an adaptive strategy to manage your self-esteem, your fears, and how you see yourself in the world and in that relationship. That's why jealousy is corrosive to your relationship, and you've got to deal with it. You got to face it, not on the surface for what the jealousy issues are. You got to get to what's underneath. What's driving it inside you. That's the important part. Not easy. And you may need to go to a mental health provider to do that. Makes total sense. A lot of mental health providers can absolutely help you deal with it, recognize it, and manage it. But you got to get to the core of it. What's at the center that drives that jealousy? And you got to work on it. And now let's get back to what we're talking about with the relationships, because it could also be, and also related to jealousy, is mood swings, right? You could be going from bliss to blasts and chronic moodiness. This can leave your partner feeling like they're walking on eggshells. I don't know what's going to happen next, right? Before they go in the house. I don't know what he or she, I don't know what they're going to be like when I go in the door. Deep breath, deep breath. Well, that sense of instability absolutely erodes over time because it's so much stress for that person. You can only tolerate so much stress. We all have an individualized level, threshold of stress that we can tolerate. And eventually, living like that, always on eggshells, always not sure what's going to happen, and so on and so forth, and this is negative, and that's negative, and you're going from happiness to just explosions, people get burnt out. Now, they may stay with you, but when they get burnt out, what happens at that level of stress? Then you start to have medical problems, psychological problems, depression, anxiety, other types of issues. And it's going to come out one way or another. So in dealing with that, those mood swings, you have to deal with yourself. If you're the moody one, you have to deal with that. Could be related to a personality disorder, could be related to another mental health condition, and that's fine. Also recognize, just taking medication isn't going to magically make it go away, because you have to get to the component of it. If it's a self-esteem issue, if it is a fidelity issue, if it is whatever it may be, financial issue, all the stuff that we've already talked about, right? If it related to that, that's adding to those mood swings, we have to deal with it, recognize it, and manage it effectively. Medication might help to temper it some, right? Lessen it, and that's great. But in order for the long-term change, to have that emotional stability, you got to get to the root of it, just like that jealousy. Jealousy feeds moodiness. Moodiness feeds jealousy. It's a whole backwards and forwards. It is definitely bidirectional. Absolutely. So what we want to do is we want to get to the center of it. And that's really important. And recognizing those mood swings. Now, here's the thing. As you get a hold of that moodiness, right? Let's say it's working. You're trying different strategies. It's starting to go down. That doesn't mean you're no longer going to have moods and reactions. We have to accept that we are emotional beings. Human beings are emotional beings. We're going to have ups, and we're still going to have downs. We're still going to be frustrated, and we're still going to be disappointed, and all that other stuff. That's within a normal range. When we talk about moodiness, we're talking about above that level. This intensity of response, or this intensity of failure to respond, that's when it becomes maladaptive. Not here, right, where you can control it and just, tell your partner, oh man, I'm really tired today, or, it's been a long day, I'm still really tired, oh, I got so much going on, whatever it is. But if you don't, and you suck it up, and you're sucking it up, and you're sucking it up, and you're sucking it up, coming out one way or another. Sometimes it can be from bliss to blasts. It can absolutely be those mood swings, and you have to get to the center of it. And let's talk about the last one, and that is annoying habits. These are little things that can become big problems. These are those quirks or peccadillos that seemed cute when maybe you first met, but over time, they kind of become annoying. I don't mind telling you, I have a pet peeve, one pet peeve that I will share with you. It is back in the day, right? When you used to have tubes of toothpaste. Now, they don't really. The toothpaste companies have helped me immensely. But when you had the toothpaste, you would squeeze it in the middle. Like, I never understood that. Why are you squeezing it in the middle? And if you're like, whoa, that's really outlandish. That's really crazy. It's not crazy. I don't know. I just found it kind of wasteful of the toothpaste. And it was kind of annoying. And why not just squeeze from the end and work forward? That seems to be a more efficient way to work with the toothpaste. But here's the thing, is in having that, when I was younger, I used to be like, oh, why can't you do it? You used to kind of get excited about that. And then I was like, really? It's just toothpaste, man. Just chill. And we have to recognize those annoying habits that maybe the person you're living with, your partner, your loved one does, and in the grand scheme of things, does it really matter? I mean, where you squeeze the toothpaste, does it really matter? Like, is it really that important? Probably not, right? So, and that's the important thing. We have to recognize that even though those annoying habits, that they may just kind of wear at you a little bit, if you don't talk about them, you're going to have a huge explosion one day. Absolutely. And I'll tell you, a little more self-disclosure, I don't normally do this, but here we go, right? It's having an argument, right? Girlfriend of mine, this is it was almost 30 years ago, right? So I'm having this argument, right, with this girlfriend, and we're just arguing, right? She leaves the room, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what her problem is. Maybe she's leaving. I don't even know what we're arguing about, right? We've all had arguments like that. So leaves, right? She goes in there. She comes back from the other room, right? Comes back from the bathroom. So she has this toothpaste, and she goes, and she squeezes the toothpaste in the middle, and just to kind of, give me a big, blank me, and they were thinking, wow, that's wild. And that was part of what I was like, you know what? That toothpaste thing really isn't that important. And is this relationship really, about toothpaste? Like, what is going on here? And it really provided me a perspective, not only on that relationship, because that was just an instance of other problems that were going on in that relationship, but also my annoyance with it. I'm like, really? Is it really worth my energy and time? And I really kind of let it go. But toothpaste, people have changed. It's not those tubes anymore for the most part, so I'm kind of good with that. But even if we had those little tubes, it wouldn't bother me because it's really not that important. It's perspective, and we have to have that perspective. Don't get into those arguments where then it's like, oh my God, you squeezed the toothpaste from the middle. You're a horrible human being. You're this, you're that, da-da-da. Come on. If you're arguing more than 3 minutes, you are no longer arguing about what the issue is. You're arguing about the relationship. And I have found that to be true time and time and time again in my personal life and in my professional life and working with couples as well. Remember that even the strongest relationship is going to require work. And I think understanding these 6 pitfalls is really important that can help you prepare yourself with the tools you need in working with your partner to be happy, to really develop that relationship in a positive way. And that's what all of us want. And if you have experience that are relationship breakers, if you got your own toothpaste thing, leave some comments. Absolutely. I want you to share your thoughts in the comments below. That'd be really cool because I think it's really interesting, but also add how you dealt with it. And is it really important? Is it really? And if these 6 things, how did you deal with it? And if you have a strategy that might help someone else, please leave it because people do read these comments. They really do. And in my channel, I've really tried to make this a safe place, but also a place where we can learn from each other. I learn a lot from the comments that people put in there and people who write me and things like that. I learn a lot from you guys, and I hope that you guys learn from me. That's what this is about. Give and take, back and forth. So I appreciate it. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.